All right. Hey, everybody. I am back, and I think I fixed my mic this time. I just got over a cold the past week, knocked me out. Wasn't able to get my first video up, but gonna give it a shot. So, if you don't know me, my name is Dan DeGangi. I'm an engineering manager from Chicago, and shameless plug, I got laid off a few months ago, so I am actively looking for a new role, right company, both ways. I've worked in the past at companies like DocuSign, Apartments.com, Active Campaign. A lot of JavaScript love. It's actually tattooed on my leg. I'm not going to show it. That'd be weird. But I am looking for the right role. So hopefully putting myself out there like this will help with that. But my actual goal with making this is to, hopefully help even one person. And today I wanted to talk about not the job market, but layoffs. And, I was laid off a few months back, and I realized it hurt a lot more than I expected. In the beginning, there was two things that happened. There's, oh my God, how am I going to pay the bills? And then two was, oh my God, this is a vacation. This is kind of cool. But as it went farther along, it started to go down a hill. And that hill is I am notorious, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I associate my life heavily to my work identity. And, I'm very passionate and ambitious, and I do love that side of my life, but for a long time, I've made that my only identity. So when it's gone, that column, everything else kind of falls by the wayside, and you start to feel bad or worthless, or like, oh my God, am I not as good as I thought? And, I don't think that's the case from the data that I have throughout my career and my experience. But I've become very, hurt in a sense because that part of my life's not there. And I didn't really come to realize this, and I don't think a lot of us do, is that separation is really crucial. And you can't just have that one thing, and it comes down to something else that I've been working on for a long time: balance. I'm not very good at balancing sometimes, and it's been hard to work on. But I figured, one, I just want to say, for those that have been laid off or trying to get a job and fighting the market right now, I feel for you. It's a tough time. So the question becomes is, how do you dissociate yourself from your work identity within reason? I don't want to give it up completely. I don't think any of us do, or a lot of us don't, hopefully. And so there's a few things I thought of. So first one was back in COVID, during COVID 2020, when I was at DocuSign, I had this really cool, nice apartment in the city, but very expensive, and getting a 2 bedroom is very difficult. So I ended up with my office like directly behind me, kind of like this. If this is my living room, my office was back there. And what's interesting is that that's one very key example of not separating. When you are in your living space and you're also in your workspace, your brain is driven to put those two things together, so you never actually make that disconnect. And adjacent example is same if you, I don't know if you hang out in your bedroom where you sleep, it can mess with your rhythm, how you wake up, how you go to sleep, how good your sleep is, because again, your brain is starting to associate it with, oh, this is a place that I live, or hang out and chill, or maybe you're working in your bedroom. Doesn't mean you can't do it at all, but you have to remember that your brain will continue to drive and make those associations and connections, so that you never really detach yourself. So when you don't have it, those little dopamine hits you get from your work identity, if you're not getting them in other ways, healthy, positive ways, you're really never going to get away from it. So a couple ideas for you. And one, these are a couple of kind of stereotypical, but is, going to that Starbucks, going to a library, trying to separate out, that part of, where you live. So if you're fortunate enough to have a big enough place, definitely think very much so about where you work and how much time you spend and when you spend that time. But also is, one of my ideas, and I didn't do it, because I didn't realize this was going on, was putting up a wall. I should have put up a wall between my office area, like behind me, and where my living space was. And I didn't do that. But that would help my brain break at least a little bit from, like, this is distinctly where I work, this is distinctly where I live my life. Now, the next one is one that I'm really happy that it's come to me, or happened in my life, which is, so about 9 months ago, I actually got a girlfriend. And also, since I lost my job, I had more time, which is getting to spend it with my parents. They're getting older, their health's starting to unfortunately go down, but I was spending more time with them. I was spending time with my girlfriend and her family. And, as much as I have a social life, like going to music fests and dancing and, cool dinners and all that stuff, although the cost had to go down, not having a job. But those were things where you don't only have, hopefully, your friends in that set is not, only work people or people in the industry. And that's another great example of is that when, your circle is not just work, and you don't even have the opportunity to really talk about those things. And I mean, like, it doesn't mean someone can't ask you a question, but where the only conversation centers around that, that is another way that I have and I've improved breaking myself away from my work stuff. And I've really enjoyed it. Like spending time with family and friends, it's a no-brainer, I think. And, so if you don't, have as much of that going on, is start with something simple, go out and do some extramurals, or, go to a meetup. And I don't mean a JavaScript meetup or anything, but something where you're meeting people and doing an activity, or even if you're by yourself, go for a run, go to the gym. But it's another example of how you continue to separate yourself. And it's tough, to be honest. And it's hurt a lot, going through this, but also trying to have those different things that bring me back and not completely rely on that work identity. Now, the last thing I want to hit on is how have I been able to keep some of that? Because I don't want to give it up, because one, as soon as you step away, it's like a great example if you're in leadership, right? You may not as actively be coding and you start to build some rust. And I'll be honest, that's happened to me. But at the same time, it's because I haven't had any of it, I miss it and I don't get any of those dopamine hits. So what are some things that I've done to get around this so that I can continue to do that, but also have that balance and those, some of those methods that I talked about that have helped me separate myself. And I picked up a part-time teaching job at a boot camp, and I've also mentor and coach privately on the side. Some of the most fulfilling activities for me personally and professionally. And, the teaching is a few days a week, few hours. I work at this place called Upright Education. And then, the people that I coach are some friends, but also like just engineers or product or designers that have come to me. And I'm getting that dose of what I'm looking for. So one is it's fulfilling and I'm helping people. But these are things that are part of my work when I do have that 9 to 5, especially in leadership. These are some of your core explicit, responsibilities and things you need to do to be successful. So while, I feel like I'm not fully back to all the things, not having the 9 to 5, I've had some things that I've brought back into my life, but they're not so crazy or unbalanced that it's like, oh, you're tipping back to the work identity piece of it. And in the beginning, though, I did go a little bit too lean into it, because it was it's almost like going through withdrawals. I lost my job from a layoff and I didn't have any of it coming in. And as you go on, you're like, I used to get a lot of good, feel good, from doing those things. So nonetheless, I know this was a very, centered video around myself, and again, shameless plug that I'm looking for a role, but I do hope you found it helpful. It's the layoffs, the job market is tough right now, and I understand that, but we do have to find ways, as much as we're hunting, and we don't want to lose that, or I don't think a lot of us do, but we have to have that balance. And so, if you've been impacted by this, I would say is, be willing to say it's like, one, it's okay. Like you're not worthless or you're not as good as you think because something maybe out of your control happened, but you have to reaffirm that for yourself and say those types of things and have the rest of your life, or have someone tell you that's not the case. Sometimes you can't just tell yourself. So I hope this was helpful. My first video, I'm realizing I'm looking all over the place, talking with my hands, but I'm Italian, but it's a new thing doing video. But I do hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.